Welcome back to the Soul Spiral. And today I have beautiful Melody Lubin joining me. She lives in service to the feminine and works in the feminine teachings as a mentor and a facilitator. And she really specializes in embodiment of ourselves and our fullest self and sacred sexuality. And she's an all-around sensual goddess, definitely. She's a Taurus, so how couldn't she be? So thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's so exciting to have you here. And I often sit across from you on a screen so regularly. It's like nice to be in person with you.
Yeah, and just like seeing the top half of your face.
I know, this thing is like a microphone's like covering my face. It's like in a weird angle. I might just shift that slightly.
Yeah,
that's better.
Yeah.
So Melody.
Yeah.
Obviously the realm of embodiment and sacred sexuality and even just sensuality in general, I feel like is one that carries like either maybe a lot of preconception or shame. We explore this a lot between the mentoring that you've given me. What led you to this work, and what led you to finding this reconnection with the feminine? Because I'm guessing there maybe was a disconnection at some point.
Yeah, it's so funny. I feel like I'm having a lot of like similar threads in conversations at the moment. And it's coming up to my birthday, and I feel like it's always a really reflective time for me. And I'm always reflecting on like where I've been and where I've come from and where I'm headed and that kind of stuff. So I feel like this has come up quite a lot for me. Like, how did I get here?
Yeah.
What am I doing here? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I was really disconnected from my sexuality for about 7 years. So my last relationship that I had was 8 years ago in September. So it's coming up to 8 years. And when we broke up, I went on kind of like a promiscuous bender is what I would call it, where I was just having a lot of sex with a lot of different people. And my journey from my late teens was a lot of promiscuity. There was a lot of unconscious and unhealthy sex. And just one day after this long-term relationship and like midway through this intimacy bender, I just had this like sober moment, and not even necessarily like sober from intoxication of drugs or alcohol. It was actually just like intoxication of my life, like just so unconscious. And I just had this real sobriety, and I was like, whoa, this is not serving me at all. So I decided to clean up my life. It wasn't terrible, it was just unconscious, you know, and I just knew that there was more. There was like something that calling me that was bigger. And I stopped having this kind of sex with these kind of people and decided to go celibate for a bit. And it only was intentionally to go for a couple of months. I was like, let's just go for a couple of months, not drink any alcohol, just kind of spend some time getting some clarity, basically. And that celibacy turned into 3 years. And I actually shut my body down in that 3 years. It went from like consciously choosing to go celibate to unconsciously completely closing myself off, dismissing my sexuality, like fully rejecting, repressing, suppressing that whole aspect of me. I had so much fear of, because it's our power, right? And when we're not taught how to use it, we've journeyed this before, but like when we're not taught how to use it, it's I don't want to, there's can be danger when we're not in responsibility of what's happening. And I think I was so fearful of getting myself into unconscious patterning again that I just didn't want to connect with this aspect of myself. And I was really rigid. Like it's so funny, like this was something that I've been reflecting on, just like the early part of my 20s and up until I was kind of like 26, 27, I was really rigid in my expression. There was no flirting it was just like shut down.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess that was like, I remember witnessing, so I trained with Wild Grace, Sigourney Bell, and she has a movement called the Wild Grace movement. And I remember seeing it on Instagram, and my whole body was just like, I know that. Like that feeling, it was like a remembrance to me. And I was like, I know that. Like that's a part of me that I have neglected completely, and I feel that. And that was like my awakening into it.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's just been a journey of kind of reclaiming my sexuality and finding a healthy expression, but not just that, actually building a relationship with it so that I can harness it and be with it and use it and like trust it.
Yeah.
You know, because I think so many women don't trust themselves, and we also don't trust other women. When we see other women expressed in it, we're kind of like, what is that? She's got that thing and I want that, but how can she have that and I don't? Like there's so much. It's like some of the deepest shadow work that you can do.
Totally.
Because not only do we have our own experience with it, it's also collectively such a taboo. So we've got these like external conditionings around it that we also have internal, and then our own relationship that's warped.
Yeah, there's so much to unpack there. Like I totally agree and resonate. And I love that aspect of you finding that re-partnership, or like almost like you're courting yourself to the point of like going into a deep relationship with yourself, because we're just not taught to do that, like through most of us, through our experiences. And it's this societal conditioning around shame around the feminine, like
100%.
Yeah.
Like it goes back, it's from a young age, right? You're like exploring sensation in your body, and from a young age that's completely dismissed. You know, we have these parts of our body that experience deep sensation, and that's like a full no-go. You know, so from a young age that's ingrained in you, and it's like we have to find a place where, I think this is what like the term relationship means, is when we're consciously participating. So like at the moment I'm working with my relationship with money, right? And for me it's like this conscious thing where I'm being really present and being with it. And I think that's like what we need to have when we're growing up children or with our own bodies. It's like we're participating with this thing and being in co-creation.
Totally.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. It makes me think of like, what do you do when you're alone? Like, what kind of relationship do you have with yourself when you're alone, when there's no one else around? What do? Do you get sucked into like addictive patterns or distractions from being with yourself, or like being on your phone? Like
binge eating, like watching porn, like all these like shadow aspects, or can you actually bring it and be with it? And be like, okay, cool. What is this? Like this high sensation experience that I'm craving. What is it showing me?
What am I avoiding within myself?
Exactly.
And within my relationship.
Exactly.
Do you feel like that's really what self-love is? Like at the end of the day, is like being in that real divine union of relating with yourself?
100%. I think it's like the curiosity to know yourself better. Of like you would a friend, like asking yourself the questions of like, what do you like to do? What makes you feel good? Would you like to do this today? You know, like I think that is the curiosity of self-love. It's like really spending the time getting to know yourself and then choosing the things that you love doing from that space.
Because you see so many people that perhaps like live the same life every single day, and you can just see like even I experienced it. I worked in corporate recruitment. I worked in banking for like 6.5 years. I don't know if you know that about me. And like I could just feel like this, you're doing the same thing every day, which is going against probably what you really actually want to do in terms of like your senses. And so but then you just keep plodding on, and then you wonder why you feel stagnant, or you wonder why you feel unfulfilled, or why you
resentment.
Yeah.
Like resentment is something that so much of our world lives in, because they're angry that they can't choose themselves.
So true.
Yeah.
I really like that thought process.
Yeah. And I think that's an element of self-love, right? It's like knowing yourself and then choosing the thing that's actually best for you.
Totally. Yeah. I love what you were saying before about the sensations. And, you know, like I spoke to you about this just before, and the other day when we were on our call, about this innocence in sensations and innocence in sexuality. I remember the first time you said that when I was at your woman workshop.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my gosh, I never thought about like that there is innocence within sexuality. Because I mean, through my societal conditioning, it's like there's so much like taboo, or like dirtiness, or like shame, and like hidden secrecy, like from a negative point of view about sexuality or about sensuality even. And so, you know, you were saying as a child, like when people are experiencing these sensations and then they get told, no, you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to flash a vagina at the neighbors or whatever it is.
yeah. You're not allowed to touch yourself there.
Yeah.
And you're like, whoa, my body is like naughty.
Yeah.
That's what that ingrains.
Limits.
It's like off limits. Yeah.
And then we wonder why we're so disconnected from ourselves, and so disconnected from what true like lovemaking or pleasure and things like that feel like. You know, it makes me think of all the people that, or even myself, all the sexual experiences that you put up with that aren't like, don't feel good, but you're like, oh, this, I'm just ticking the box or doing the process, but I have no connection with myself to know, like, to feel okay to be like, no, this is what I want and this is what I like.
Exactly. And it's like, if we're not willing to, not if we're not willing, but if we're not open to seeing sexuality as innocent, it remains in the shadows. Totally. Like all the way that we experience it currently in the collective is like, that's also why we have really not great things play out within sexuality, is because this thing is so suppressed.
Yeah.
But I think we were speaking on our session, and I think I was speaking to eroticism, or maybe it was yesterday actually with somebody else. I was speaking to a client about eroticism, and like the erotic energy is like nature. You know, that's just like the pulse of the universe that lives on Mother Earth and within inside each of us. It's like fruit is erotic because it has that aliveness and that flavor and that sensation. And it's like the more innocent that we can, it's literally just a pulse that lives through us. And then we've got various aspects of our sexuality. So we do have like the real pure heart innocence, and then you do have like the more sex aspect of it. And it's like, how can we experience both of them? And even within the denser, I'm going to use as like a frequency, but like denser aspects of sexuality, how can we still see the purity of what that is? You know, and I think that that's so much of what this work is like having radical approval, not just acceptance, but like radical approval of all parts of self. The parts that we're told that are like a no, how can we still approve it? Because it's just part of the human experience. Being human is complicated. Like, we don't need to complicate it anymore. Just be okay with it, and then get really comfortable in it, and like claim that that's part of you. We need more radically expressed people. Totally.
I love that expression of that it's like we are a reflection of nature, and nature, like, it's almost like the sex is the aliveness. And you see that in nature, like, who knows, the trees could be having sex with each other and we don't even know, because we're just seeing the beauty in nature in each of those moments.
100%. And what's not more like miraculous and innocent than the act of like pregnancy? You know, so what happens when you do have sex? What's not more innocent than that? You know, you're creating the most innocent thing that comes into this world.
Totally.
So there's like a reframing that definitely needs to take place. Yeah.
And so what other parts of our sexuality do you feel like people also need to reclaim? If we have like the innocence, for some reason in my head I keep saying like innocence in action, but it's innocence like in the sexuality, but I don't know why it keeps coming out in my head like that. But what other aspects do you feel like there needs to be deep reclaiming for us to be able to have this relationship with self?
It's really, so sexuality, the reason I love the work that I do is because the way that we relate to our body is the way that we relate to everything, you know, and I'm using this word relating because it is a conscious participation.
Yeah.
And I think like we need to be reclaiming all parts of self. So like we need to have the relationship with our inner child, with our sexuality, with our shadows, so like our judgments, our shame, our guilt. Like we need to be relating with these aspects of self just as much as we're relating with our love and our joy and our happiness and our bliss. So I think it's like a full reclamation of everything. Yeah. And within that, your sexuality expresses that. You know, we do have the parts of self that are kind of like this more primal and wild aspect. And then we have this like really seductress, like desire-y, sexy aspect, and then we have this sensual aspect which is like softer and more open, and you know, and then it comes into the innocence. So it's like getting comfortable in all parts of those expressions.
And so I remember when we did in Woman, you kind of played with those like main archetypes, like for those four main areas. It's four. And like reclaiming each of those and embodying each of those. What do you find people have the most difficulty with?
I think a lot of people are, so if we talk in regards to archetypes, we'll talk about kind of like sex, the seductress. So this aspect of self that is like this magnetic, playful, but it's like very in the sex. It's like powerful, right? And I think a lot of women, I'll speak to women's experience. I do think that a lot of women go through a promiscuous stage and then they kind of don't know what to do with that stage and they shame it. So a lot of people do hold fear around this power and don't know how to work with it. And then if we tune into kind of like this lover aspect, which is like the sensualist, bliss, pleasure, you have a really great lover.
Which is like heart-based sort of
connection. It's like it's heart and sex, you know. There's like a sensual softness to it. It's not just the heart, it's that there's like a little bit of sex in there as well. And this is like the essence of giving and receiving. Women have a lot of issues with receiving.
Totally.
You know, we love to give so that we don't actually have to sit with the discomfort of what it means to really absorb and receive something. And we have that. The shadow of the lover is kind of the prostitute, the woman that just like wants to give and give and give and pour her love into something else so she doesn't have to be with herself. I think it's really common within our parents' generations, like a lot of mothers in
the martyrdom sort of stuff.
100%. And it's like, where are we giving to receive something else?
Totally. That's
like this exchange.
Like if I give to you, then you'll have to give back to me. So like that's the way that I can do to receive, by feeling okay about receiving rather than just letting yourself receive from the beginning.
Exactly. It's like this unconscious exchange as opposed to just unconditionally giving and unconditionally receiving,
because then it comes from that source energy rather than from like taking from your own.
Exactly.
And
a lot of that is reflective of worth, right? It's like, how do we feel about ourselves?
And so what's the shadow of the seductress? That's like the more manipulative.
Manipulation.
Yeah.
So there's this aspect of like really using her sexuality and her power to get what she wants, as opposed to like being in the radiance of it and just magnetizing it.
Yeah.
Such a different energy.
Totally. I remember doing that at your workshop. It was like, whoa, the difference in that was like, it's heady. It's the best way I could describe it.
And it's also like this like hook of like leeching your energy out and pulling.
Yeah.
But when it's really healthy, it's kind of just like, oh, I'm in it and I'm just open.
Yeah. Yeah. Rather than taking.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we might as well go to the other two archetypes.
Yeah.
I remember one of them is the inner child. So it's like the innocence.
Yeah.
And then the other one is it the warrior or like the power?
We did power, which is kind of like a liberation-esque.
Just makes me think of like a rock goddess, like like on the stage, like rocking out. Like power kind of energy.
There's loads of archetypes like Mother, Mary Magdalene, Wild Woman.
Oh yeah, I want to do Mary Magdalene.
yeah, such a strong Mary Magdalene.
I'm in it. in the vortex.
Yeah,
I think I've mentioned that in the podcast too many times in the last 6 months anyway.
It's so good.
If it's the innocence is like the inner child, like that sort of plays into that aspect of sexuality. What's the shadow of that?
Naivety.
Oh
where you just kind of like don't have any boundaries and you're kind of just like being pulled from place to place because you're so curious that there's like a naivety of it, that you're just like a puppy dog. You're kind of like, yes, love. Oh yeah, this person wants to be with me. Oh, can I have more here? It's like no boundaries. It's boundaryless.
Right. Yeah. Sounds like it would be hard to pick like what's the main thing people struggle with. It's like because there's so many different facets for each person to have to deal with those different things.
Exactly. And the reality is we all have aspects of some. Just some of us are stronger and like deeper in others. And that's what makes us who we are, right?
Totally.
That makes us our essence. So like my strongest is definitely my seductress. I have such a strong seductress, and with that I have a really strong manipulator, which is it's confronting. And then I think my lover is pretty strong, and my wild woman can be quite strong as well.
Nice. I love it. I think I actually had quite a strong seductress as well as a strong lover. Those are my two.
And a strong inner child, like I feel that.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I mean, I visit her a lot.
She's a lot of care.
She does. She does. I remember last year, Alex and I did a water fast together, and during the water fast, we were feeling quite good this last water fast, and so we were talking about like doing something like crafty, like our his inner child would love. And he used to make model cars. Oh, he'll be so embarrassed today. No, he won't. He used to make model cars and like enter them in like state and like win competitions and stuff. So we decided to order a Lego, and we were building a Lego car together. And then by the end of it, I was just like, my inner child was so sad. She's like, you're giving all this love into his inner child. And my inner child was so sad. I almost like went into this like depression dip, like, and then I sat with myself and I was like visiting with my inner child, and she was like, I need stuff and
pay attention to me.
Yeah, it's so cute. I told Alex, and the next day he like wrote me this card. He's like, we're gonna go and you can pick a toy and like a coloring book or like things that like my inner child would love. And so we went on a little adventure and got her some things, and really cute.
So cute. It's so cute. I think it's such a like, sometimes I struggle with kind of archetypal labels and masculine and feminine dynamics and stuff like that. I think there's like a lot of misuse of these things where people kind of just like aren't really teaching them that great. actually, especially on information on social media. I think a lot of it is very basic and you're not really getting to like the truth of what it is. But I do believe that when you're taught them well and you learn to relate with them, it's such a powerful tool, having an understanding of these aspects of self. You know, I think like sometimes when my shadow comes up or my ego talks, I literally just I'm like laughing at this part of myself. I'm like, wow, the human experience is actually hysterical. There's a part of me that actually believes that this is about me right now, you know, or like there's a part of me that actually thinks that it's okay to do that. And it's funny. It's
like you're watching it and you're just like, oh, that's an interesting way that I'm reacting. And like you can consciously feel like, I don't need to react like that. But your subconscious is like, no, but I want to react like that.
100%. Like with your inner child, it's like, it's cute and funny. It's like, I'm always here. You know, I'm always here, but you're just going to play out for a bit. Okay. Let's just play out.
You need a coloring book. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
You need unicorns. I get it.
I think like the innocence, the inner child piece is really reflective in nature. You know, like when you go and you see nature, and nature is an epic reflector of all aspects of self. Totally. You know, like when you see the hurricane and you're like, oh cool, Mama Nature's like going for it today, full wild woman-esque, right? But like on a really like forest, beautiful day kind of vibe, that's full inner child essence, just like the simplicity and the thoughts of, this is bigger than me and I'm participating in something that's bigger than me.
And the curiosity. Having that curiosity of a child like in nature really brings you back, doesn't it? Like it's grounding and like brings back to self, but it is like quite whimsical in a way. So it's interesting that it's so grounding. I really love that. So good. And so you've been actually supporting me through, I mean, my journey's been interesting over the last few months, but we've been working together since the start of the year, and you've supported me also through my dad passing away, and I really appreciate that. And I really appreciate that, you know, you kind of like invest in yourself through an experience like what we're doing together, and then you have this like space each, you know, fortnight to like be sat with and be held space for and be taken through a process. And I love that your stuff is so like body focused and like back to this embodiment, because I think that we can be so stuck in our heads, and it's something that I struggle with. I go in and out, and how can we come back into the body and be with the body and be with the sensations and be with her and listen to her? And it's like, again, it's that relationship with, I don't know, you could think of it as self, but it's like a real relationship with our humanness, like our physical, because we're so easy to be like a spiritual soul, like stuck in our head being like, oh, this is not where I fully feel comfortable in a human body. And I was writing that in my journal this morning. It's like,
Aquarius.
Such an Aquarius. But it's, I really appreciate that reminder. And kind of, I want to know, like, when you take people through those processes, obviously, like, you're great at adapting to what's obviously showing up for me as present. Like that week that I was like just so sad from my dad dying, I think you just took me through like a deep meditation, and it was exactly what I needed. And I was just like, I just felt really, I felt really supported and held. So like your gifts are so powerful in being able to tap into that energy. I really want to recognize that with you. That's so, it's so powerful. But is it different every single time you take people on a journey? I feel like you probably have some sort of structure, but it's like, who knows if that's where it's going to go, or.
I think that's one of my favorite things around working with the feminine.
Totally.
Is that like,
you never know what you're gonna get.
Never. Sometimes I'll get onto a session and I have no idea what I'm having to do, or I'll have like a hit in the morning, like a really subtle. This happened to me yesterday. She was like, my intuition was like, we're going to do archetypes today with Jade. And I was like, that's random. Why are we doing that? And we sat down and we're having this conversation. She's telling me this is one of my clients that I'm working with. And we're going to do something. I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to take you into your body. And then all of a sudden I go, actually, no, we're not. We're going to do archetypes. And it was like the perfect medicine for what she needed in that day, like the perfect. And learning to trust my intuition has been one of the maddest journeys, and like continues to unfold every single day. And then I see the slips as well, because intuition is so subtle. You know, it's like different to gut knowing. Gut is like a full feeling. But intuition for me is like this little whisper at the back of my head that says something, and I'm like, oh, okay, will I listen to you or will I not? Exactly. So yeah, for me, there's topics that I choose to cover because I think there's definitely threads that most of us experience. And one of the main intentions, every woman that works with me will get a de-armoring tool, because one of the main intentions is to actually get people in their bodies and feeling their bodies. So that's kind of like a definite 100% basis of what we cover. The main idea is for people to actually have like a physical relationship with their body, because I think we're fearful of touching here and like being there. We don't know our anatomy. We don't know our tissues. We don't know what's meant to feel good, what's not meant to feel good, why it doesn't feel good, why you can't feel anything. So like that is definitely a massive part of my work. And then this archetypal stuff that we've been speaking to is definitely a massive part. And then it's also just like you said, what they're experiencing. So some people are single, some people are in relationships, and some people are like looking to communicate better. Some people want to like work specifically on sex. Some people want to understand relating skills. Like they're all slightly different, but they're all the same threads.
Totally.
But all of my work is constantly leading you back to you. And then I have other ways of working as well, which is more like energetic work, where we're really looking at patterns that play out, shadow work, that kind of stuff. It's pretty different, and I never really know. And every journey looks different, and I think that's why I love it so much. Because every woman comes for, I think one really great thing about the feminine is that we're coming because we want a particular thing, but we get something completely different. And that's always the way. It's like every journey that I've ever been on. I think I wrote something the other day where I was like, this is what I'm learning at the moment. It's like, we think we want something, but it's actually the medicine of the journey that we want. And the outcome is almost irrelevant.
Oh my gosh.
Like the amount of women that come to me and they're like, I want to experience a cervical orgasm. And I'm like, okay, cool. That's your goal.
But the journey to get there.
The journey to get there
sounds like a big one.
Exactly. Like the amount of opening, de-armoring, shame, like your body has to be so open to have that. So are you willing to go on the journey? And it's like the medicine. And then by the time you finish the however long, it's almost irrelevant to whether you can have a cervical orgasm or not, because you have this relationship that you didn't have before.
Totally. Is numbness like super common?
So common. So many women have no sensation in their body whatsoever.
Wow. Why do you think that is? What do you think? Like, obviously there's a lot of things it could be, but what makes you think that so many people experience that?
The biggest thing is abandonment.
Wow.
So my experience when working with any kind of relationship, so whether that's a relationship with your partner, relationship with your friends, relationship with the food that you eat, your body, your money, as soon as you start to bring attention to it, it changes really quickly.
You
know, like when you're eating and you're not really conscious, you're eating food every day and you're like, you lose weight or you gain weight or you don't have energy or something like that. But as soon as you bring attention to it, it shifts within like a matter of days, and you start to feel more energized and you feel less bloated, you know, like those kind of things. That's exactly the same with your body. Like as soon as you're actually consciously with your body, it will change. Yes, there will be emotions that need to be moved and parts of you that won't. It's not instant, but sensation will come when you give your body the presence that it's yearning for.
Where you focus and the energy has an opportunity to go there.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Oh,
I love that. Yeah. Oh, I'm seeing like a weird image in my eyes. It's like a yin yang. Maybe we should talk about polarity.
Okay, cool. Yeah, okay.
I was like, what am I seeing? Oh, okay, that's funny. How do you like to work with polarity in the work that you do, or like help others to like work in that realm? That's a realm that I really love playing in.
Yeah.
Especially because I've been in partnership for so long. Like I really had the opportunity to like play with it in our we play with it a lot in our partnership, and it's really helped us to support each other more, noticing like when we need to like shift the polarity to make
keep it exciting,
but also just like a deep support, knowing what the other person, like if the other person needs to be more chill and they need you to be more on, how much like support that actually gives.
Yeah. I think that's just like learning, that is really learning what your kind of go-to is. Like what energy do you normally love to sit in, and acknowledging that the energy that you love to sit in is changes with the person that you are and the role that you play. You know, like for example, in the work that I teach, the transmission that I give is like, my understanding of it is like power and sex. And then I also have like a really playful, soft side of me that when I'm in relationships, that's like my preference of what I want to be. Like I don't necessarily want to hold the whole time in relationship. So it's like learning the parts of you that you sit in and that like you switch on. You know, for particular things. And it's not performing, it's just like tuning into and tapping into a part of you that is dormant.
Totally.
And then just like
toing and froing between the two,
creating the tension. Especially with intimate relationship. Exactly.
I like that. And it sounds like you're like me, I'm like you, like I prefer to be in that like soft, like da, 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 like not really structured. That's my preference. But then like when I'm in session with a client, which is probably the same as you step into that power and on and holding space, and there's structure there, and there's flexibility, but there's that, I don't know, that onness about it. Of course you're going to want to be like more and find your feminine time if you have to do that, like switch between for your work as well.
Absolutely. And I think like this is why building a relationship with all aspects of yourself is so important, so that you don't burn out. Right? Because if we or do nothing, if I was in my feminine all day, I have another teacher, so Sigourney Bell was my first teacher, and I would now work with Perry Chase, and I really love working with Perry. She's just like teaches you how to be a woman basically, and she has really epic language around shadow behaviors and just the feminine. And so like we either have like the hyper masculine burnout, all power, all singing, all dancing, which I have been, and I was that for 6 years when I was completely shut off from my sexuality. That's what I led with, was like my power, my empowerment, being a woman, like boss bitch, like that kind of thing. And it's hard and it's exhausting. And then I've also been like the damsel feminine, where I've wanted a man to come and save me and wait for him to pay my bills and like do all the things for me and cook for me. And it's like, that's not cool. It's not cool.
Gotta find them in between.
Exactly. It's like finding that internal union so that you can actually experience union and also play the roles, you know, so that your partner, whether they're male or female, feminine and masculine, lives inside whatever gender we choose to identify as. And so that your partner, whoever he or she is, also has the opportunity to drop into their other less dominant energy, you know, and that's the support piece that you're feeling, right? Like it's hard to be able to cook your man a meal.
Totally.
You know, as opposed to just like sitting on the sofa and being like, hey, cook for me. Like it's nice to take that dominance and being like, hey, let me look after you. You've had a mad week. How can I nourish you?
It's that yin and yang, like you need both. And you have, and within the yin you have that little bit of yang, and in the yang you have that little bit of yin, and it's like it balances.
And I think with the internal work, like the closer you can get to the middle line of this masculine feminine polarity, the easier it is to like fully surrender into both and like step into both.
Yeah.
Because I think when you have one that's prominent and the other one isn't balanced, it's not really surrendering or like taking on that role. It's actually quite shadowy.
Yeah.
It's almost like an over identity, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like there's no empowerment in the experience.
Exactly. With both, like the hyper masculine woman or the damsel woman.
I'm curious, like I'm sure you're familiar with David Dieter's work, and he has this book called Intimate Communion. I don't know if you've read it. But it talks a lot about in relationship when we don't play with the polarity, and we both like do this 50-50, like kind of like both trying to show up in the same way and be really even in the way that we relate, that it leads to less of that polarity or that pull to each other, or that, because then no one's actually taking the step of like, let's per se, like the masculine or the feminine. You're always kind of like meeting in the middle. And so there's never actually a polarity happening between the two. And so then that leads to like feeling sad or like unfulfilled or those sorts of things. But I'm like, do you feel like someone is always sitting more in one or the other in relationships so that you can create the polarity? Or, you know, when you have that evenness where everything's just 50-50, everyone does everything, and then all of a sudden there's no passion between the two because the polarity creates the passion. What's your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think it's like, it's kind of impossible within relating for there not to be some kind of polarity playing out. You know, like you could meet, like if I think about my friends, for example, I'm thinking about a particular friend of mine. We're both like what I would consider women, you know, like hold that women, and we meet each other in our woman, but there's one of us that has more feminine quality and one of us that has more masculine quality, just because that's our dominant. And it's not like I'm relying on her for anything and she's like needing to slow down in any way. It's just that's what plays out. And then when it actually gets shadowy is when we both kind of like deeper into the polarity and kind of like one takes control and the other one fully surrenders. That's almost like where a bit of like shadow and resentment ends up playing out, because we can't, because there's not responsibility and there's not softness, you know? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's like when we can't hold ourselves, that's where, you know, because really I don't want to lay around the house and like have my man tell me when I'm leaving the house and like that I need to get dressed because I'm going to do something, and like that's bullshit. I want to be responsible as a woman, and I want to meet a man and him to meet me in my woman. Like I don't, and I do think that without the integration, the shadow takes over, and it becomes this like
codependency.
I'm being looked after, thank you for rescuing me, you know, like that. That's like... But I think always there is a level of polarity, 100%, and some people there's like more of that, and others there's less.
And so it's like this responsibility and integration of the polarity you're playing into to allow it to complement the other, to then create like a beneficial outcome, let's say,
100%,
or bring stuff up to then work towards that, or whatever it is.
How does it play out with you and Alex?
I mean, we've been together almost 9 years.
So
we at the beginning of our relationship, once we kind of like walked through the honeymoon phase and we moved in together, there was probably more codependency on my side of like, I wasn't happy in my job and I was like I wasn't happy in myself either. I was seeking to him to help me like find the answers to that. But once I kind of like stood in my own power, he used to travel a lot, so I was actually forced to be my own person, which is what I needed. because I would lose myself. And so that forced me to have my own life, to like do my own thing, have my own interests, my own hobbies.
Responsibility.
Exactly. Yeah.
For your life.
Exactly. And I think Alex and I have always been like each other's biggest supporters. And I feel very fortunate that we bring out the best in each other of like of that growth. So yeah, that's definitely there. But then it's interesting. So then we both went really like independent, both really our own people. We used to come together and have like beautiful time, but we were kind of like almost like too independent. It was what we needed at the time. But I'd go to Revolver with like all my friends, and this one guy that was like one of Alex's best friends, Alex would always be traveling, so I'd just be with like my other friend, and everyone thought he was my boyfriend. And when Alex would come, I'd be like, oh, Alex, my boyfriend's here, and they'd be like, oh, I thought that was your boyfriend, because I was just so independent on like, and just happy to just like relate with so many people that I wasn't like holding that. I don't know. It was just an interesting energy to be in. And then, yeah, then we went through some rough patches in our relationship, and like some stuff came up. And well, I first of all went traveling. I went traveling for 5 months. I bought a one-way ticket. I didn't know when I was coming back.
Yeah, wow.
And that brought up a lot of stuff for me in our relating. I was like, oh my God, I was reading that David Dita book I mentioned actually, and I had to stop reading it because it was triggering me to the point that I felt like I was being too masculine, and I was going to do this thing like Lone Ranger off on her own, like trying to figure out the world. And I was in this book, he was kind of, I didn't finish the book. He probably like had a good summation at the end that wouldn't have been so like directive, but I was like, oh my God. And Alex was encouraging me in the time because he knew that's what I needed to do. But I was thinking he was like telling me, yeah, go, like leave, like go away. And then he came and met me for a period of the time. And then I was away for like 4 months and came back. And then after that, it was just like, I don't know, there was just a bit more like, we were okay. Like we've always been, yeah, we've always been like in sync enough that it's never been an issue. And then, yeah, we went through like a bit of a emotional thing over something that had happened in the past. And then we fasted together. And the fast that we did together, that 30 days, that changed our relationship like in the most incredible way.
Yeah, wow.
Because we, you know, like to be closer with someone, you've got to go through adversity with them, you know? And so we'd been through different levels of that, and definitely like we'd become like better people together. But that first fast, like it was like we healed everything that we had like still had little fragments of, and we were there together, and nobody else will ever know what I went through that experience, because it was one of the hardest experiences of my life, except for him. So we just had this like deep, and during that whole experience, like we were both so like together and just like had the same intention. And we always believed that, you know, putting your intention with someone else makes it even more powerful. And so coming out of that, we were just like, we're just on fire. We were just like together on fire. Like, so yes. And yeah, that from that, like real abundance came in our life after fasting.
Beautiful.
Like so much abundance.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
I think like a really beautiful piece that I want to speak to on what you shared there. It's like you almost have to experience the polarity of yourself.
Totally.
So you go from like that damsel to that like hyper independent of where you're traveling and that kind of stuff. And then this is circling back round, but it's like you're doing the internal integration so that when you're with somebody, you can then be like, okay, cool. I'm not actually being soft here. I'm like actually going into my version of masculine or like independence or something like that. Like, how can I learn to soften? What do I need? And it's like really this internal awareness, this awareness of your internal system so that you can navigate and so that you can read and be like, okay, cool. He needs me to make him dinner. He needs like me to hold space. No, he needs me to nourish him or like give him a massage and be in service. Because service is a complete different energy to like holding space or like being dominant, you know, or like taking control is completely different to serving. Yeah. You know, and there's times and place for all of them.
Totally.
He needs to kick up the ass right now. Like he's in a funk.
Oh, yeah.
How can he, what do I need?
Yeah.
And vice versa, he's doing that for you.
Totally.
So the more awareness you have of your internal, you can then feed and be like, he needs space now. Cool. I'm going to go for a couple of hours.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree with that. And I think through the time that we've been together and through our own spiritual journeys, we like decided we were going to be conscious with our relating.
Yeah. Beautiful.
And I used to remember I would ask myself, am I open or closed right now? Because like when I would feel myself getting triggered or reacting, I would be like, hold on, what does my body feel like right now? And usually I would feel contracted. And if I just like breathe and allow myself to open, then I could let him in more and actually communicate with him more what I needed in that moment. Because that's all they need usually is they just need you to be clear with what you need.
Yeah.
But when you want them to guess, that's when problems arise.
And that's actually what part of growing into the mature feminine or growing into a woman is like knowing your desires and speaking them with clarity.
Yeah.
You know, like this is what I need, or like this is what I want. And then if we're talking in
we're talking our partnership.
Yeah, exactly. Then he can respond to that and be like, okay, cool. Because he wants to do that. But that's also, it's the same when he needs something, you know, it's like his feminine or whatever, asking for whatever they need. And then you respond to that. You know, it doesn't matter what sex you are, but it's that as a woman, and that is gendered, it is our responsibility to know what we need.
Yeah.
You know,
as anyone.
Yeah. But specifically talking about like from the immature to the mature, like that is the role of the feminine.
Totally.
It's like get clear on your desire.
Yeah.
What, not like letting somebody make, what do you want for dinner? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing more unattractive about that. What do you mean you don't know?
Yeah.
Like, do you have any idea? Or do you just want me to do your life for you?
Yeah. Or maybe when you say you don't know, actually what you want is, I want you to take lead.
Yeah. Can you decide?
Mean you know.
Yeah.
It's
like,
I
don't know what I want.
Yeah.
Could you just think of something? I'm feeling really tired right now. Can you just make dinner?
But what you really want in that moment is them to take the lead. Exactly. It's not that you don't know what you want.
Yeah.
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 I love that. Yeah. So cool. And so you've got a program that you're starting soon. Yeah.
I'm so excited about this.
Yeah.
So Kristin and I are doing the Returning. That's like my first staple program. And then I'm launching on April the 20th, the Opening, which is an 8-month unfolding into the feminine. And it's actually something that, it's a really beautiful story, so I'm going to share.
Please do.
About a year ago, this time last year, so my birthday is the 22nd of the 4th, so 422.
Yeah.
And I was woken up 3 nights in a row consecutively at the beginning of April with just all this like stuff coming through. So the name had landed about 6 months before and I didn't know what it was. I was like, I don't know about this. I don't know if I love that name, the Opening. I'm not sure what that is, but it came through. Yeah. And then about 6 months afterwards, I was woken up at 422.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. In the build up.
Numbers are like my jam. So yeah. I'm all about it.
Yeah, me too. So in the build up to my 30th birthday, this frequency started coming through and all this like poetry was channeled through me. And I was like, okay, this is random. And it's such beautiful. The wording is amazing. And I've basically journeyed it for the last year. And I've actually tried to launch it twice. And it's not happened. And intuitively, I knew that, but I was like, I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to do this. Like so much content was just coming through it. I was just journeying so much stuff. And I was like, this is it. This is it.
Yeah.
And then I just got the really clear message that it's now, which is a year on. So I've done the 8 months and I'm doing the integration.
Yeah.
And, it's going to be 7 women. So there's just 2 spaces left and it's an 8-month unfolding into the feminine. So we're going to be looking at things like desires. I've got a bunch of, the relationship with the body, desires, lots of conditioning around sexuality, around our bodies, around like, the ways that we navigate through the world. It's going to be a lot of embodiment. Just like the art of particular things and cycles that play out in our lives. So getting really familiar with our feminine cycles and like these death cycles and the letting go parts. And it's going to be really juicy. And I'm actually just really honored to be able to guide people through it because it's a really powerful, epic container. And I can't wait for it.
Oh, it sounds so juicy.
Yeah. It's going to be really nice.
Potency, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so cool. And so that's like, it's like a group journey.
It's a group journey. So there'll be 7 women, because even within a group, I really want to get in with people. You know, I really want people to have time to see some things.
Yeah.
And the reason that it's 8 months is because most people finish the 4-month journey and still want to work with me. And I think that it takes a long time to learn to work with the feminine, you know, like, and then acknowledging that it's then a life journey.
Totally.
Yeah, of continuously coming deeper into parts of deconditioning and parts of yourself.
Totally. And keep coming back to it. Like I've worked with other mentors. I've worked with embodiment, and then like I just went through a lull, and I found you, and I was like, okay, I'm time to go back and time to like revisit and like learn new and be open to like what else comes through. And it's been really powerful for me thus far.
Yeah.
We still got a little bit longer, so that's good.
And I think like that's also part of the deconditioning, is that we're so used to instant results.
Oh yeah.
Like in this world. And that's part of the surrender of like, I'm like my life and who I am as a person is a work in progress constantly, and being okay with that there is no destination. And that's why you have to be so radically conscious to be like, cool, I've actually nailed that thing, or I'm not doing that thing anymore that I used to do for 10 years.
Yeah. Wow.
You know?
Yeah, totally. And the integration is so important.
Oh my God.
You don't go to like 1 weekend workshop and your problems are all solved. Like that's the beginning.
Literally the beginning.
Yeah.
What I think is also the beginning, this is something that's been really alive for me, is like the choosing to sign up for something.
Totally.
Because that's you responding to the thing that is bigger than you.
Yeah.
And I think like this comes up for me a lot in the build up to launching things. It came up for me at the beginning of Women, like the amount of people that would reach out to me and say that they wanted to do it and then block themselves, you know, and it's because there's like that fear of, and people use excuses, right? It's like money or time or whatever it is. And yes, they might be true. And there's also the piece inside of you that you're not ready to unravel.
Totally.
Like you're not ready to reclaim and you're not ready to reveal. And I think the work really begins when you acknowledge your desire, where you like feel the thing and you're like, okay. Yeah, I surrender.
Yeah.
As opposed to like controlling it and suppressing it and being like, no, we can't. It's like, okay, I'm ready.
Yeah.
And I think that's the piece.
I totally get that. I feel that surrender. Like when I signed up for Women, I think I signed up quite late.
Yeah.
But I am like, I was just like, I'll know when it lands. And then when I did, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm signing up. And with working with you, it was because for me, like me signing up to Women was actually me opening to that. And I think I already knew that. And it always feels really simple to me when the time comes to say yes.
100%.
Like really neutral. It's like, yeah, okay. Like there's no like, oh, like big, like intensity sort of feeling. It's like, no, something's landed so you can you're walking through the doorway or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think like at the beginning, when you get into this work and it is unconscious, it does feel like a real battle.
Yeah. And
then some kind of clarity lands eventually and you're like, okay.
Yeah. But like when I work on clients and I feel their resistance, when they have resistance to things, it feels like nausea in my body.
Yeah.
It makes you feel sick.
And it's so much easier just to be like, no, I won't do it.
Yeah.
Like I can't afford it. Cool. Perfect. That's like, it feels like a breath of fresh air to say I can't afford it, as opposed to like actually going into the resistance and the part of you, you know, it's like, no, it feels better just to, I can't afford it, and make that decision and like suppress it, cut it.
Yeah. And then that's what you're putting out to the universe, that you can't afford those things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have some questions to ask.
Okay, cool.
Some fun questions. Well, we know what your sun sign is, but what's your moon and rising?
Cool. So I'm a Taurus sun, just so that they know. Just my birthday.
In case they forgot from the beginning.
My birthday's in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
2 weeks today.
Oh my gosh.
I'm a Leo moon and a Libra rising.
Ah.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Okay. I see it.
I have a lot of Leo in my chart.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You do have that kind of fiery Leo kind of energy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I find fiery Leo energy has this like, it has like a sensuality to it. It has like almost a softness. And then Taurus is like,
Well, I think
the
it's
king
the
of
lion, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like that cub, but then also the
there's
like
a royalness about it too.
yeah, and that like what's the word where it's like
commanding kind of presence.
Commanding and also like loyal, you know, like for their tribe is just like, this is mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it. What, and you're a projector?
I'm a projector.
Same.
Yeah. What's your lines?
My, like, is that the 2-4 or whatever?
Yeah.
I think it's 2-4 or 2-6.
Okay, cool.
Or 2-5.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's either solar plexus or spleen.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah, I think it would be spleen.
Yeah, I think it might be. I'm not sure. I always forget human design stuff. What's yours?
I'm a 1-3 splenic.
Yeah.
So that's the intuition is the strongest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your favorite fruit?
I'm really glad you asked the question. I'm a massive fruit lover. I think passion fruit is my favorite fruit. Yeah, I just love everything about it. I love like the way that it gets eaten, you know. I love like very tropical fruits, pineapple, mango, passion fruit, lychees, like dragon fruit, stuff with lots of color.
Papaya?
You
got the papaya cup for your tea.
Yeah, I love it. And I also really love plums. I'm a bit of a fruitarian. Like if I could just eat fruit all day, I would.
Oh yeah. I didn't know that about you. You know, I don't know if you know that about me.
Yeah,
I
do. I'm not like much of a berry girl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really into blueberries right now.
Yeah,
but
nice.
Not usually.
Yeah,
nice. In smoothies.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the color is just turning me on. Like the purple.
Erotic. Fruit is erotic. Bananas. Look at them. Yeah. So erotic.
It's funny. I think when in one of our sessions, when I was like doing stuff with my cervix, I got a message that the color of my cervix to heal like is purple. And so I've been having all this purple stuff. I don't really wear purple, but I've been wanting to eat blueberries in my smoothie because it looks bright purple.
Yeah, nice.
Now I make the link.
Yeah,
I love it.
Also, like when I open a dragon fruit or something like that, I'm pretty blown away that it grows from the ground. You know, it's like, amazing. Whoa, this is wild. Our world is so rich.
It's so amazing.
Yeah.
I have lots of passion fruit growing on my new property.
Yeah, amazing.
Like a huge passion fruit vine. I'll have to bring you some. If you could return to one moment in your life and re-experience it again, what would you return to?
One moment in my life. It's really funny that you're asking this question. You know, Facebook does memories sometimes. So 11 years ago today, there's a picture of me, my mum, my dad, and my sister in Liverpool.
Yeah.
And that was like the last time that we were together as a family.
Wow.
And I think there's so many points in my life that I have loved moments with like friends and been traveling and been around the world and like had deep moments with nature. But actually, I think like if I could go back to any time, it would be a time when my family is like together, my parents were together and we're around each other.
Yeah.
It hasn't happened for me for so many years that my parents like are in the same proximity. And I just think like a moment like that, like on the beach in Barbados or something. And we spent a lot of time there when I was a kid. So just like those kind of times, I think.
I love that.
Yeah.
I'd pick something similar.
Yeah.
Forest or the ocean?
Ocean.
Yeah. I knew you were going to say that. What plant or flower do you work with the most?
Rose.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And then you've got Miss Anya moving into your place.
Yeah.
The rose. It's going to be the rose house.
And I also really love lavender.
Yeah. I love lavender too. What's your favorite crystal?
I feel like amethyst.
I knew you were going to say that. That's funny. Yeah. It was the lavender that made me think that, though.
Yeah.
We're on a purple theme over here today.
I'm a purple kind of gal.
Maybe you're the purple.
It's like, do you do those games where people ask you questions and then they tell you what the answer is and why you pick that thing? So what your favorite color is? Purple. And for me, it's because it's like the integration of the masculine and the feminine.
So true.
Yeah.
That just clicked a few things for me. I
love
that.
Okay.
That's really cool. It's interesting. Like that just expanded something for me, because often like I see numbers everywhere and then like I really try to connect with like what that number means for me. And so like now I have my own articulations of what, like when I see that number, what the universe is telling me or what it is. But I haven't really done that with color. But you suggesting that sort of scenario there of like what that means to you is like, actually that's something I could explore more.
Yeah.
That's cool. I love it. Thank you for that activation. Well, if you're an animal, what would you be?
A lion.
Yeah.
Like a cub, probably.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Is there any words you want to leave the listeners with before we wrap up?
Any words? Yeah, I think something that's come up for me in the last couple of weeks, which is, I think, apt because it's been Aries season. And me and my housemate were talking about it the other day. Of just like this constant commitment to choosing yourself. And like, if I could leave the listeners with anything, is just like, get really clear on the places where you abandon yourself and stop. Like, just stop. Just choose yourself in every moment. Like, really get to know yourself so that you can choose yourself. Because I think until we know ourselves, we live in people pleasing and we live in like this desperation for some connection or whatever. And I think just like spend the time learning yourself so that you can keep choosing what's actually true and best for you.
So good. I love it.
Yeah.
If people want to work with you, what's the best way to get in touch? Maybe to talk about opening or returning or any of your journeys. What's the best ways to talk to you?
Yeah, cool. So you can find me on Instagram. It's Melody Lubin, and you can DM me on there. I'm always open to connection. I really love it when people drop in my inbox. So don't ever be afraid. And you can email me on melodylubin@gmail.com, but I'll give you all of that. And
I'll write it in the show notes so people can find it.
Yeah, cool.
Thank you so much for such a beautiful conversation. It's been so fun.
Thank you so much for having me.